What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast. Ains here, along with Bert and Dan, as usual. This is episode 34, and we are actually trying out a new format for the show going forward. So, previously, we had been coming to you bi-weekly with a longer show talking about things across the industry. We're going to switch that up a little bit. We're changing to a weekly show that'll publish at the start of every week. It's going to run in the 30 to 45-minute range. We're still going to cover all the news and reactionary things to the week. We're also going to add in game reviews. So today we're going to be talking about Assassin's Creed Odyssey specifically. And then we're just going to keep it short and concise and kind of get your feedback, see how you like the new format, see how you like us coming to you weekly. So let's go ahead and get started with the news. Yesterday we had the X018 conference from Microsoft out of Mexico City. There was a lot of hype build up about this, just trying to see what Xbox was going to bring going into 2019. This was their first fan-related show focused solely on Xbox in a very long time, and so there were a lot of large expectations. So we got some announcements out of the show. I don't think there was anything too mind-blowing. The Obsidian acquisition was confirmed, which is very big news, along with Exile, the makers of Wasteland and Bard's Tale, along with some other announcements. But I don't want to drone on about this. So, guys, why don't you kick us off with some of the things that came out of the show that you're most excited for?
So Crackdown 3 coming. That's going to be awesome. I'm pretty excited about it after the 30 years of development. It should be pretty awesome. The new, what was it called? That arena mode that we saw.
Wrecking Zone, I think.
Wrecking Zone, sure. Go with that. It looked good. I mean, I'm a big Crackdown fan. I love the first game. Second game was pretty good. Been waiting on this forever. It's about time. And I think the release date, it was supposed to be the 22nd originally. Then I think they moved it to like the 29th. And then they moved it up to the 15th, which is fine. And it's going to be on Game Pass. And you can actually install it now, from what I understand, even if you're just getting it for Game Pass, which is sweet. So that was the biggest one for me. The mouse and keyboard stuff, I think there was a lot of missed opportunities there for some of the games like Avon Colony or City Skylines and stuff that, games that you would think that these mouse and keyboards would, benefit more than, say, something like Fortnite. Not to say it wouldn't benefit Fortnite, just that those kind of games, or maybe like an Age of Empires remaster I was kind of hoping for, but, they use mouse and keyboard, but I didn't see any of that stuff. So, but overall, it was kind of, hey, thanks for showing up and getting a couple free things. So that's about it.
Yeah, on my end, I was really let down by the conference. Funny enough, I was live messaging Dan and Ains about it. And for me, it was, if you're an Xbox gamer already, I think you got some good updates on stuff that you may or may not play a lot of already. Nothing really new outside of stuff. And even the stuff that was new, it was rumored for a while. If you're not an Xbox fan, if you're a Nintendo, Sony, only, nothing really in this conference is going to reel you in any closer than it was before. So that was kind of a letdown for me. There was a lot of stuff that us Xbox fans were kind of hoping would be surprises that were rumored. I wouldn't say rumored, but I guess hopefully rumored for stuff that we were expecting. Some really cool updates coming for Forza on their first expansion. That looks really, really neat. That's one of the stuff me and Dan were like, man, Forza Horizon looks just awesome for some of the new stuff coming out. If you're a State of Decay 2 gamer, there's a lot of new stuff coming, and that's all free. One of the things that I thought was really strange from the start of I guess it was almost 2 hours, maybe it's an hour, 50 minutes or something, was they were constantly pushing Game Pass. And we have Game Pass, all three of us do. We love it for what it is. But I thought it was a little bit of Game Pass pushing overload, in my opinion. So from the start, it was like, this is coming on Game Pass. This is what you already have on Game Pass. This is what is going to come. And after a while, it was like, I get it. You should get Game Pass. So that was some of the stuff for me. So for me, it was very mediocre. But for the stuff that we do play, very exciting.
Yeah, it was. I wasn't even home, as you guys know. We were I was checking your texts about it here and there, and I was waiting for some big news. Obviously, we've talked about it. I was waiting on some Banjo news we didn't get. I was waiting on something big that was unexpected, but we didn't get that. So nothing too much more to add from what you guys said. There's some good stuff coming for existing games, first-party stuff, right? Forza Horizon, Sea of Thieves, State of Decay 2. The Obsidian announcement being official, I think, is probably the biggest thing. Obsidian is a tremendous studio, and it's going to be really interesting to see what they bring. And of course, I think people are hoping for like Knights of the Old Republic 2. I don't know if they still own that IP because it's Star Wars, but things like Fallout New Vegas, if they own any of the rights to those, if they can bring them over to the Xbox One, backwards compatibility. And then In Exile is, it's not really huge news. The makers of the Wasteland and Bard's Tale series. So Wasteland, if you're unfamiliar with it, was essentially, it's like Fallout 1 and 2. So Fallout 1 and 2 were isometric survival RPGs, and Wasteland kind of picked up where that left off when Fallout went to the whole new 3D open world thing. So, for pen and paper RPG guys, that's pretty interesting as well. So we'll see what they bring. But other than that, I didn't think anything too crazy. To Dan's point, I am really looking forward to Crackdown. I like those games that have a fun single player, but then a fun multiplayer mode as well. So the 5-on-5 full destruction of the city we've been talking about for a long time, but it looks quite good. So, and I think, Dan, you're right. They pushed the release date back, and we were kind of confused, and then they pushed it up now, which I think is probably the smarter move because they're getting in front of Anthem. And letting people kind of play Crackdown to see if they get into it or enjoy it before the other big games come out, where I think they might have just ignored Crackdown completely. So,
yeah, I agree. And then Ori, another one that kind of surprised me with the Ori and the Will of the Wisp. I was hesitant on it, actually coming to Game Pass because they did all that stuff, I think, prior to, all the first parties coming to Game Pass. That was already in the works. So I think they had to sign probably some kind of new deal or something. So that's sweet, and Hellblade coming, that's nice. It seemed like they started with like the big names, and then it just kind of trailed off, but they did. Bert's right. I mean, they pushed that thing hard the entire time. So
Game Pass is the future for them. I mean, that's where they want to go. So,
Ains, really quick before we move on, there's two things I wanted to mention. And one thing that I thought was really interesting in the Crackdown presentation is the cloud computing end that they spent a bit of time talking about. But it's such a complex piece of technology that it's really hard to kind of sell it in something as small as like an E3 or one of these presentations. And just the summary of it that they mentioned was, regardless of what kind of Xbox that you have, whether it be a launch, an S or an X, a lot of the destruction and everything you're seeing is going to be done the same exact way, so the experience won't change for you because of the cloud computing going on in the back end. I think this is going to be extremely important for games in the future. It might be something that Xbox does better than Sony or Nintendo in the next generation, with how their cloud computing happens in the back end of games you're seeing right in front of you, and the lack of latency and how it happens. So it's extremely important. We could probably have an hour conversation of how the technicalities of the whole thing works, but they briefly touched on it, and to people that don't understand any of that, it went over their head. But I think it's good that they mentioned it. And the second part that I want to mention is, with all the acquisitions that are happening, holy hell, Xbox is going to have one hell of an exclusive lineup if these games are developed properly. So we are going to be, what if Obsidian is actually the people that are working on Fable? So that's something that could be good, because Obsidian makes amazing RPGs, arguably the best Fallout of the entire series. So I'll leave it at that. I just want to mention, as the small things happen, there's some big news and stuff. I think focusing on Microsoft right now is a poor choice. Looking for the next 2 to 3 years is something that people need to look and keep on their roadmap big time.
Yeah, excellent points all around. The cloud computing thing is really interesting. And I was having a conversation with someone the other day about Project X Cloud and why it's important. And the fact that Google, of course, is, testing their streaming service. But Nintendo and Sony really don't have the means as a company, the infrastructure to really compete in that regard. And so to your point, next generation, with not only these studios, but this technology, you can see Microsoft laying this really solid foundation for the future of what it means for Xbox and Windows gaming. And it's really impressive, but you're right. It's a few years out. So, but it's interesting to see these building blocks kind of happening in front of us, right? And cloud computing, that it's really what they advertised coming into this generation, and people, they caught a lot of flack for it, of course, and it hasn't really come to fruition. It's taken a little longer to get there, but it's definitely coming, and when it does, it's going to be really, really impressive. But you're right about the studios as well. Their first-party studio portfolio now is ridiculous, the talent that they have. So, and they just continue to hire. I can't imagine how much money Microsoft is investing in new studios and development. I mean, I don't know, it's crazy, but we'll see. So let's talk about some of the other things happening. So Battlefield 5 is out on EA and Origin Access. Bert and I have been playing it. Dan, I think you said you're going to play it, but haven't yet. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
I played a little bit of the single player.
Okay. All right. We talked before about it kind of getting a lot of flack, people being rather disinterested in it. It hasn't been really as hyped up as you would expect a major Battlefield title to be. But I got to say, and guys, feel free to chime in. But we played for a few hours last night, a couple hours the night before that, and I'm really, really impressed. It is absolutely stunningly gorgeous on the Xbox One X. It runs very, very smooth. We haven't had any issues in terms of actual gameplay. The weapons, the destruction, the maps, I'm having a ball with it. Honestly, I'm quite surprised at how much I'm enjoying it. I think I'm already enjoying it more than Battlefield 1.
Okay, so I have 3 matches of Conquest, the single player demo that you have to play before you play the Conquest, and I have to say I'm blown away by it. So we've been playing Call of Duty, which is obviously a very different game, and that's been the only shooter that I've really had my hands on for a while. I've been playing so much third-person story stuff for a while that coming to Battlefield has been a complete treat. I'll simply say that. It is beautiful. If you're on a 1X and if you're on a true 4K TV with HDR, it is amazing looking. Just even if you're laying down waiting for people to come, you see stuff flying in the air. There's so much going on in the distance. The different classes have been a blast. And as always, in my opinion, it's the best shooter to play with a team because you have to kind of cooperate together in order to win. So we've only played Conquest. Ains, I don't know if you've played any other modes, but at E3 we played a couple other modes that were fun as well. The one negative I have of all Battlefield games is that one match will take you 30 to 40 minutes to complete. So you'll sit there and you're like, I'm just going to play one quick one before I go do X, my errands or whatever. And an hour later, you're like, all right, I'm done with my game. Let me go do something else. So that's the one thing. But if you are somewhat a Battlefield fan or just a shooter fan and are looking for something fresh, this game is a must play. Pick it up. There's crazy sales everywhere. I'm sure there'll be Black Friday deals as well. Play this game.
Yeah, man. I mean, I haven't played a lot of the multiplayer. I played a lot of the Battlefield 1, and this looks similar to it. I've only played the first opening mission, and then there's another one in there. I played like part of it. It looks fabulous. I mean, the X just makes it look insane. I don't play a lot of competitive multiplayer. I just don't. It's not really my bag. Baby, but I was going fine. So I don't play a lot of competitive multiplayer. This one I will, and I played a lot of Battlefield 1. I'm looking forward to jumping on with you guys. Want to be a medic because that's the only thing I'm really good at. If it comes to shooting stuff, I mean, I might as well just be a giant meat shield because that's about how good I am at that. But it's
popsicle.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun to play. I got out of Call of Duty, never really got back into it. But Battlefield has always kept me interested, and it's just a different mechanic. And like to your point, Bert, about being a team-based game, that's really why I like it so much. It's almost like playing a co-op game, but you're still playing against other people that are better than me. Always. So
well, the interesting thing about this one, and Bert, correct me if I say anything that is different, because I know we don't know all the mechanics yet. But the medic hands out like healing packets, and the support hands out the ammo. But anybody can revive anyone now. It's like a team revive. You don't need the needle like you have in Battlefield before. So, and the nice thing too is that they really incentivize the squad with the point system. So like if you revive a squad mate, you get 200 points for that, which is like, getting a kill or two. So like just working as a squad, shooting together and healing each other and reviving each other, you don't even have to get many kills, and you can be near the top of the leaderboard as long as you're doing objective stuff. So I think in that regard, it's even more than previous Battlefields, emphasizing the whole team and objective play rather than just straight shooting. So it should be great for you.
Yeah, Dan, and if unless you're playing sniper, you know, a lot of the kills that you get in this game are team kills. So even if you think you suck at shooting or playing someone else, most of the time, me and Ains will like pepper that person, and you'll finish it off, or you'll add, you know, you'll pepper someone, and then Ains finishes them off. So you don't have to be an amazing shooter. There's so much team shooting and Conquest. You can go the whole match without getting one kill and still lead the leaderboards because you've capped so many of the points. So it's a blast. We'll definitely play more on it. There's still the Battle Royale mode that's coming in the future. But like I always say, check this game out. If you have EA access, it's going to be free at least 10 hours for you. And like I said, there's some crazy sales going on in some places, so pick it up if you can.
Yep. All right, so a couple other pieces of news we wanted to cover. So we've got PlayStation 4 is picking up a couple games that were previously only on Xbox in PUBG and Path of Exile. So we've talked ad nauseum about PUBG. I don't think that's going to be a surprise to anyone. So it's supposedly coming next month. And then Path of Exile, I've spoken about before, a terrific action role-playing game in the vein of Diablo, but with a more serious tone and a deeper skill tree. So if you like action role-playing games and you're a PS4 player, check that out. It's actually free to play, Path of Exile, and they do a tremendous job. You know, microtransactions are all cosmetic only. There's nothing you need to buy to actually play the game. So very good news for PlayStation 4 players there.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, we knew it was coming. As far as Path of Exile, I looked at it, I have it, and then I saw the skill trees, and it's like something from like Good Will Hunting that's on a chalkboard, and I'm just like, no, that's not going to happen. I'll stick with Diablo. I'm good.
It's like that gif of the dude doing all the calculations. You know?
Yeah,
right. That's exactly what I saw, and I was like, oh my god, I can't even. You know, I just want to, you know, stab people.
Yeah, it is a very deep for nerds like me who like min-maxing, you know, really calculating builds and planning things and, you know, how you're going to get the most damage. That's who it's for. If you want to jump in and just get loot and smash things, Path of Exile is not your game.
Yeah, Dan, I mean, you can go do something else while he's doing that because it's not for me.
That sounds good.
That's too much going on. I mean, you'll finish a battle and there's loot literally everywhere, and you're like, holy crap! And then unless you know what you're doing, you're just like, there's this, and thankfully they have good menus. But I did have a question, Ains, and maybe you do or don't know the answer, but any idea on cross progression between either one of these games coming from either the PC or Xbox builds?
Nah, they're standalone, both of them.
That sucks, man. I can't imagine being a PoE player and then coming in raw again. That's just
I was a beta player of Path of Exile on PC. It came out in 2013, so it's 5 years old now, and I put hundreds of hours into it on PC, but when I logged in on Xbox One, it's brand new. I started fresh.
Man,
so
one of the biggest things I hope next gen figures out. So
yeah, me too. What else we got here? So Diablo Immortal. This feels like a week ago now, but we'll cover it anyway. Where all hell broke loose, where the Blizzard had their BlizzCon and they announced a new Diablo game, and it happened to be called Diablo Immortal, which is going to be a mobile version of Diablo. And God, Blizzard caught all sorts of flack for this. A lot of rudeness and probably the worst aspects of the gaming industry came out, where, you know, people were threatening Blizzard developers and just ridiculous stuff. So I understand everyone wants Diablo 4. I'm as big a Diablo fan as there is out there, but calm down. They're still making Diablo 4. Diablo Immortal, it looks good for a mobile game. If mobile games aren't your thing and they're not my thing, okay, don't play it. Just wait for Diablo 4. But I'm going to check it out anyway. Besides that, I'm going to check it out. It actually looks really good for a mobile game, and I hope it plays well and it has a deep enough loot and skill system to what we were just talking about for a mobile game, because then I'll obviously play it. But did you guys I know neither of you are really huge Diablo players. Any interest here?
I love Diablo, man.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. What the hell are you talking about? I own Diablo 3 on like 4 different platforms. So
how did I screw that one up so badly? I don't know. I don't remember us talking about that.
Because, you know, it's one of those, I've never really played with anybody. I've always played by myself. You know,
well, that's just terrible.
Like the seasons. I know it sucks, but I never really knew anybody that played it. So, is it only coming to iOS or is it coming to Android too? Immortal.
That's a good question. I know they announced it for iOS. I can't remember if they said Android. I have to assume it's coming to Android too, right?
Probably. Anyway, yeah. I mean, I'll try it out. You know, I'll give it a shot. You know, my biggest thing with mobile games is just the controls usually, and if I could get past that somehow, I'm sure, if they implement like, Bluetooth controllers and stuff like that, I'll give it a shot. What the hell? I love Diablo, man.
Sorry, gosh damn it.
Damn it.
All right, I get it. Calm down. Hey. Did you pick it up for the Switch?
Yes, I did.
I've heard it's really good, and I put hundreds of hours into it on PC when it launched. I've put hundreds of hours into it on Xbox. And I don't know if I want to do it again, but I'm tempted.
It's the same thing.
I know, that's what I mean. Like,
except the controls, are all, bass backwards basically because of all the. Here's the thing about the Switch. It's got the same damn buttons as the Xbox, but they're all in different positions. So I'm sitting there like, oh yeah, I know what this does. It makes it a little easier with Diablo because it's based on okay, this button does this, regardless. It's not the same. Or like jump button is the one usually on the bottom or something like that. It makes it a little bit easier. And I figured out a way to put my Xbox controller with my Switch and use it. So still doesn't make a difference because the buttons are still mapped the same way. but you know what? I can play with the kids. It's got some split screen, multiplayer stuff. And I played that with, they enjoy it too, actually. My kids do, which is kind of surprising because usually they're just big Fortnite guys. But, that's a fun one we play together. So,
yeah. Cool. Bert, you checking this one out? Probably not.
No, I don't do any mobile gaming whatsoever. As far as like phones go, I'll check stuff out on the Switch, but even my Switch, I probably play 90% of the time on dock. So I've actually heard a lot of the comments that have been going on. I think a couple make sense, but the majority of the negative blowback is just kind of crazy in my opinion. But yeah, I won't play this game, so I don't have much to say on it. I've actually wanted to get into Diablo, the console stuff, quite a bit, but at this point, everyone I know has played the hell out of it already, and I don't see myself jumping in that deep into it with everything else that I need to play. But I've heard that I have to play it at some point.
Yeah, it is kind of late now, especially. Yeah, I mean, I've beaten that game about 100 times back and forth, so there's really nothing surprising, and I have all the sets and everything. So, but anyway, speaking of the Switch, so gigantic news for the Switch this week. Owners went nuts. Is that they can finally watch YouTube.
Support.
YouTube's out on the Switch. This made headlines, and people were raving about it. I have no idea why. I've had YouTube on my phone that's next to me for years, and laptop and tablets and Xbox and PlayStation. I don't know why this is big news, but it's there. Go get it.
You can even get YouTube apps on your fridge on those fridges that have Android running on it.
Oh man!
So I do want to mention something about it because I was kind of excited about it because I have YouTube Premium like a lot of people do, and one of the good things about YouTube Premium is that you can download content and take it to go with you, like if it's a long show, a podcast, like Season Gaming Bitcast. But
that's one to take with you.
That's the only one. Yeah.
Unfortunately, you cannot save on the Switch, which kind of bummed me out quite a bit. You still get the premium stuff, which is no ads and stuff like that, which is cool. But one of the things that surprised me is how hot the Switch gets when it's running YouTube. And I thought that was really strange because it's literally running an app that should almost take up no energy, but it kills my battery on the Switch like crazy. Very good positive is the quality of stuff is fantastic, and maybe it's just a small 720 screen that's doing that, but it looks really, really good on that screen. So I've liked that. Other than that, I don't have much to say on it. It is what it is. It's the YouTube app. So and we need Netflix, Amazon Prime, and the NFL channel, everything else that should be on there, but it's not. So we'll see. That and Hulu. That's all we got.
That'd be cool. Yep. All right, so we're going to talk a lot more about this next week because even though I have, I think, 70 hours into it, and Dan's really deep into it, I don't think Bert's gotten into it yet. So we're talking about Red Dead here. Official review will be coming from us on next episode, and we'll get into it a little more. But just wanted to mention the headline here, which was came out earlier in the week, which was that Red Dead has sold 17 million copies in 12 days since launch. It's sold the same amount of copies in 12 days that the original Red Dead has sold in 8 years. So obviously the hype and all the marketing and everything behind Red Dead 2 worked. The game I'm going to go on a lot, so I won't do that this week, like I said. But the game is incredible, and I know Dan and I have put a ton of time into it. Bert will get caught up, and we'll have a better conversation about that next week. But regardless, the sales are through the roof, and I don't think anyone's really surprised by that.
And Ains, was it 725 million in opening weekend? Is that
in 3 days? Yeah. So biggest opening weekend ever. Second only to Grand Theft Auto 5 for the biggest opening ever. But Grand Theft Auto 5 opened on a Tuesday, so that's why it was kind of weird. But so if you look at it this way, right, in the first week, the last two releases from Rockstar, Grand Theft Auto 5 and Red Dead 2, probably passed $1 billion each, which is just I don't know what you say about that. I mean, it blows anything else, music, movies, obviously books, blows them all out of the water. It's not even close.
Oof. All right.
Yeah, not much else to say. Well, like I said, we'll cover that next week. So that's the news for this week. So we're going to talk about Assassin's Creed Odyssey for a few minutes. So Dan reviewed it for us here at Season Gaming. We are debuting a new review system on the site, which you'll see next week. I'll touch more on here shortly. But long story short, he gave it a sensational rating, which is equivalent to about a 9 on the Season Gaming scale. Dan, you had a lot of good things to say about it. So why don't you talk for just a minute or two around, your experience with Odyssey, what you like so much about it?
All right. Yeah. Here's the thing. I'll preface this by saying I have been a huge Assassin's Creed fan since the first game. I played almost every one of them, except for a couple of the smaller ones. I think Liberation. I have not finished a couple of them, but I love this series. Love it. I had some, reservations when I went into it because of all the things I saw prior to release. I saw the first thing that I don't know why it jumped out at me, but there was no hidden blade, and I was like, well, this is ridiculous. This isn't Assassin's Creed. It sounds stupid and trivial, but that was kind of one of my things. And it looked more like like they were going for just more combat, and they kind of took some of the lore out. I didn't know what to expect, but once I started getting into it, and it took me a little bit, it was amazing. Graphically, looks just crazy good. I took a picture, I think, of one of the I was sitting on like a rock with an arrow or something. It just came out so good, and it's one of those photo modes. I don't like them typically, but just capturing that world is just amazing. The combat in it is fast. It's pretty brutal. It's fun to play. That's another thing. You get some of these games that come out and they're just with terrible controls, and this one doesn't do that. Story is about what you expect from the Assassin's Creed games anymore. It's almost secondary to everything else. Ubisoft is they're good. They're serviceable, like I said, but it's I can take it or leave it. There is a grind for sure. I ended up purchasing the experience thing about, I don't know, a couple hours in just to see what the difference was. It's really not that much difference. I mean, you still have to grind even with that pay to progress option. I wish they didn't have it in there. Seems kind of cheesy, but it is what it is. As far as the RPG elements that they introduced, it's very similar to Origins. There's a few more, things in there, like the conversations that you can have. You can change those things around. They affect later on in the story. Stuff that like BioWare or something has been doing for a long time. But once you get into it, it is an Assassin's Creed game through and through, and it's just really, really well done. I really enjoyed my time with it. I don't know how many hours I put into it. A lot. There's quite a bit. I know some new DLC dropped, and I'm really looking forward to get back into that. But yeah, it was an incredible game. They really did a great job with it.
So the one question I had off the bat is I keep hearing, and I've heard from both of you as well, that it's more RPG like even than Origins, right? Kind of a little bigger skills and conversational stuff, like you just said, story wise. What's the loot like? Is the loot just like Origins, where it's just like, incremental upgrades, and there is some rare and legendary stuff, but it's not like Diablo, right, where you're constantly finding new loot? Is it just like Origins, or is there more loot as well?
I think there's more to it than that. It's not exactly like Origins. You can upgrade just like in Origins, where you could find you can have a piece of equipment that you can upgrade pretty much through the entire game and keep that same thing. But the way they did it is the bonuses that you get for those things are very specific to the tree that you are using. So we have the hunter's tree, I think the warrior tree, and the assassin tree, and all of those pieces of loot will correspond to one of those three trees. I never had an issue as far as finding something to use, not once. I think obviously those legendary pieces are what you're after, and they're usually based on the level that you're at when you find them. But as far as the loot goes, I mean, it wasn't like Diablo where you're trying to get those pieces. They just kind of come along naturally, especially some of the bigger stuff.
Gotcha. So, Bert, I know you wanted to say a few things about this as well, right?
Yeah, so being that I have not played Red Dead Redemption 2, this is by far my game of the year. Without even thinking about it, and I've played a lot of really good games this year. As Dan mentioned, there is weird pacing in this game, and I wouldn't say just the grind thing. So I'm going to show you really quick with my hand on how it goes. So the game starts out like this. It's very kind of whatever. Assassin's Creed Origins started out very boring to me, and it took me a while to get in. Odyssey, slightly better at the beginning, but it goes like this. It's slightly good. Then you hit a peak of the story and it gets really good. And all of a sudden it drops. Like it gets really, really boring for about 15 to 20 levels. And then when you get to a certain part of the story, it all of a sudden jumps right back up and continues going up to the very end. In the end game of the main story is probably even better than the normal game, which is really strange to me. So there's a main mission, just to let you guys know how big this game is. I think it's more than triple the size of Origins, if not quadruple. I think Origins took people somewhere between 15 and 20 hours to finish the main story. Both Dan and I have completed it 1,000 gamer score on Xbox, and Dan, I won't speak for you, but I think I was somewhere in the 30 to 35 hour range to do that. So for me, I am 62 hours into Odyssey, and I've barely finished the main story. And I finished that last night. I know we were trying to play Battlefield, but I was like, I got to get to the end. Just for the Bitcast today. But I absolutely love it. There's so much to do. To Dan's point, there's different kinds of armors. There's a lot of mythological characters in the game that you get the armor for. So if you want to go after those, you can. Then you hunt these things called cultists, which is part of the main game as well. That is, you don't even have to finish the main story to kind of get to those, and vice versa. Once you finish the main story, there's still a ton of cultists you got to track down. You've got the sea battle combat, which is another game just by itself, and I think it's amazing. There's different islands. I've never seen Greece done so well from a historical standpoint. Me and Ames were briefly talking about how big Red Dead is, and if you were to take your horse, just ride it full speed across the world, it's like 9 or 10 minutes. I would argue that probably Odyssey will take you 15 to 20 minutes if you were on a horse to go from one end of the world all the way across to the other end of the world. And to an extent, Odyssey might be too big for your average gamer. I think there's a lot of stuff in it that just takes you a very long time. I mean, I think the average time for someone that is shooting through the main story of the game and not doing anything else whatsoever is somewhere around 40 hours. If you want to be a completionist, you're somewhere in the 130 to 140 range, and that's with doing things. And also to Dan's point in his amazing review, there is weekly content and monthly content that they add to the game. And then there's awesome stuff coming. Like you can, there's a Hades armor that you can get that they're adding to it, and you're just all on fire. And your horse is on fire too, which is cool. And then they're adding bosses from a, once again, mythological standpoint that you will find in the world and stuff like that. So it's being supported really, really well. We haven't even got to the free content that's coming from a DLC perspective. And also from the Ultimate Edition content, there's more DLC coming, as well as Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered. So that's all stuff that is in the future. So I'm not going to talk all day about it. I will say this is the closest we've come in this generation to a game being potentially better than The Witcher 3, if
Slow
not
down.
as
Slow
good.
down.
I think the world and the story is very similar to Witcher 3 on how you obtain stuff. There's not all the magic things that exist in Witcher and all the different trees that you go in that world, but there is elemental stuff that you can add to your weapons and armor. So I think if you are Assassin's Creed fan and the new Assassin's Creed fan, it's nothing like the old Assassin's Creeds. I think Assassin's Creed has evolved quite a bit, and it's no longer what it used to be. But I thought Origins was amazing, and I didn't think this was going to be as good. And what we saw at E3 was like, hey, it's just a copy of Origins in the Greece world. It's not. It's a whole nother game. It's fantastic. In my opinion, it's the best Assassin's Creed ever. I like the characters. I like the story. And I think I'm done.
All right, so Bert didn't like it, and Dan did. We'll see what I think of it, but well, okay. So I haven't played it at all, so I can't really add anything. It's one of those games, that and Tomb Raider, that I'm waiting to pick up, probably $25-30 or something around Black Friday or later this, in December. So I'm more excited for it now, though. I really wasn't that excited for it, but both of you have raved about it. It's gotten great reviews. I hear a lot of comparisons to The Witcher, so if it's nowhere close to The Witcher, I'm going to be pissed off and start swinging at people. But one note for you, Bert, is as you transition to Red Dead, don't let your horse catch on fire.
No,
you don't want to do that.
Totally bad idea. So when you compare it to, like, say, Red Dead, I played both of them, or The Witcher 3, like you did, Bert. It's I think The Witcher 3 is a little bit deeper as far as RPG elements go. I think the problem I had is where I've had some issues with Red Dead is that I went from this to Red Dead. So if you're going straight from it, it's going to slow it down so much. You're used to just flying all over the place and just mutilating people. It's not the same. I think that's, you have to kind of remove yourself from that before you start that other game, because otherwise you're going to be like me when I was just like, this is ridiculous. This clunky controls and all this other stuff. But it's not like that. Had I not played this game, I think Red Dead would have been a little bit higher on my, expectation list or my enjoyment list. But I still loved it. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, this game was really good. I mean, really, really good. They did an amazing job with it. So
it's good.
Yeah, there's a lot to do in Odyssey. So if even after you finish, and even like I said, the cultists and the main story and stuff, there's still so much other things to do. That he's
stories.
Yeah.
So it's huge. It's huge. Yeah.
All right. So real quick, anything currently playing? I know for me, I'm simply playing Red Dead and Battlefield. I really haven't played anything else currently, or I'm looking forward to. I'm devoting all my time to Red Dead from a single player perspective while we play Battlefield and Call of Duty on multiplayer. So anything else you guys are currently playing that you want to touch on or maybe relevant for this week's episode?
I've been playing a little bit of Hitman 2, but at this point, I basically have been replaying Hitman 1 because there's a legacy pack that you can download for the new game that updates everything, and you basically use the gameplay and the mechanics from the second game to the first game. They did a really good job with that. So other than that, pretty much the same thing, Red Dead 2. And in fact, I went back after I finished Red Dead 2 and loaded one of my earlier saves, and I'm going to try to do a little bit more this time. I just want to kind of see, what I want to say. I missed a whole lot, but I'm sure I missed some. So I want to kind of ease back into that too. So I'm kind of just playing those two, and then a little bit of Battlefield like you.
Cool.
My rotation's nuts, as always. So I'm going to do a few more things on Odyssey. I'm still debating if I want to go for the 1,000 gamer score again. Kind of want to, but there's so much else to play that I can't focus on that now. Maybe I'll leave it alone, come back to it. I need to start with Red Dead at some point. I just know that that's going to suck up all my time once I start it, so I'm trying to mix in a few other things. So still playing Black Ops from a social perspective with some friends locally. Really excited to get into Battlefield, and still a few of my racing games that I'm always playing. So that's it. Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, that's going to mostly close out our first new episode of the Season Game Bitcast. So like I said, look for this weekly going forward. We're going to publish probably beginning of the week every week, and we're going to be adding in some new segments and possibly have some guests in the future as well. Additionally, there's going to be our new Season Gaming main site launching next weekend, along with the new show that Dan, Burt, and I have been working on for a little while now. So stay tuned for that. We can tell you that it's called Backseat Gaming. And you can look for that on Twitter and on the main site next week. Like I said, first episode debuting on Friday, I believe. Is that what we said? Friday? We're doing next Friday?
Friday it is. That's the aim.
Yep. Okay. Other than that, where every time I go to ask Dan, where can we find you? I know that you're here. What else you guys got going on? Anything before we close out?
Yeah, not too much, man. I'm starting a new show here in about a week or so, hopefully, if everything goes all right. We're kind of putting some stuff together. It's just a little casual, show. Ains will be there at some point. Bert, I'd like to have you on too eventually. It's just going to be kind of one of those, fun little side projects is basically what it is. And it's just with a couple friends, and we're going to see what happens.
It's sounding good. So feel free to say it. It's Third Wheel Arcade. You can look it up on Twitter. And that's third with a 3, so 3RD Wheel Arcade.
Yep, and should start next Friday, tentatively. That's what we're shooting for, anyway. World of podcasts.
Yeah. I've got a fun unboxing for people that are into it. We did a Power A corded controller for the Nintendo Switch, which I guess is the closest affordable controller for the Switch that you can get that has the functionality you need. They just released a wireless one recently, and so I want to do an unboxing and comparison of those two to see how good they are. Unfortunately, I still think none of them are going to compare to your standard Switch Pro controller, but we'll see when we get it open and take a look at it. Cool. Some other stuff coming. So once the editing's done and stuff like that, we'll have it up.
All right. Yeah, and we've got Fallout 76, the Power Armor Edition unboxing I'll be doing as well for people interested in that. Real quick, just touch on the fact that we're not talking about older games or collectibles. We're going to do those as separate side projects on the Season Gaming YouTube channel. So not only unboxings, but if we have, maybe a monthly show or something about collectibles we've picked up or things that are, new to us here. So just stay tuned to our YouTube channel for that, and that's how we're going to do that going forward. So otherwise, as always, thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week.